almost 63 years after independence, stable electricity supply continues to elude Nigeria. Barely 6 hours after the country was thrown into darkness, the national electricity grid collapsed again at about 6:41 in the morning of Thursday, after the system managed by the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, initially collapsed at 12:40 and was in process of restoration. The grid operated from Oshogbo in Osun State went down again at 6:41, crashing to 1.60 megawatts. The grid, which was restored to about 273 megawatts at about 4 in the morning, went up to 598.50 megawatts before crashing to 1.60 megawatts as at 7 in the morning. This is embarrassing, indeed.
Very, very embarrassing indeed. I saw the statement from the National Control Center in Oshogbo by the TCN, saying that, yes, this is the first time it's happening in 400 days and that they should be commended for maintaining the grid for 400 days. I mean, I don't understand.
I'm not talking about years.
It is an embarrassment. 3,900 megawatts or less than 4,000 megawatts we cannot manage. It means our capacity, even if we generate more than 4,000 megawatts,
what if we are 10,000?
We don't have the capacity to store. That is the problem. And I don't know what agreement we signed with Siemens. I don't know when it's going to start. And I think it's high time we started this devolution of power in the energy sector. We need to really break it down and make it real. Let states, individuals, companies generate their own electricity.
We don't need the concentration.
The dependence on this so-called
national
grid or national grid cannot work. It's not working. I mean, we've had some areas where there has been no electricity for the past 1 week in Lagos, even in this K2 axis. You see, and when the grid collapses like that, when they started, it's like when you are building, it takes time. It takes time to gain momentum. It's like if you have a bus tire, you won't get to 40 RPM at once. It will take you 5-10 minutes to pump up to 40 or 35 or whatever. So it's a gradual process. But then what they now do is they first look at their premium customers, they serve them electricity, those who are on premium. And we might have some people who pay the least. They might not be connected to the grid in another 1 week or so, if they are lucky. So this kind of embarrassment causes a lot of headache for those who are in manufacturing and other productive businesses. Power is very, very key, and it's something we must take seriously. So the Minister of Power, Adelabu, Bayo Adelabu, has a lot to do, because this embarrassment must stop. You can't tell us that we have an uninterrupted no interruption in the collapse. I mean, no collapse of the national grid for 400 days.
Just 400
we should not be celebrating for 400 days. We should be celebrating
yes.
a year without power failure to the whole of Nigeria, which they did in Ghana some time ago. South Africa has more than 40,000 megawatts excess that they are exporting elsewhere. So this is a national embarrassment, and I think the president should declare an emergency in the power sector, so that this embarrassment should stop. The kind of intervention the president made in UAE.
Dr. Iwule, I think it's time that this administration will just pay, like Moji solicited, a kind of prioritized power. Just pay attention to that sector.
As far as I'm concerned, calling it a national embarrassment is just flogging a dead horse. Nigeria has been embarrassed for too long. So some of us have gone into that state, which the late Delegiwa described as Nigerians have become unshockable. nothing can shock me again. If national grid collapsed at this point, and we are still worrying, what we have been saying, and we have said this before, even during the time of the previous administration, the agreement that was entered into with the power companies, discos or whatever they call them, is it cast in iron and stone? Is it something we cannot look into again? I mean, what we expected would have been what happened in the telecom sector. We still have a situation where today, if a transformer blows up in your area, the community will contribute.
Yes.
If the high tension wire or whatever wire cuts off, the community will contribute. You will fix it. You will call them to come and fix it. You will still pay them to fix it. And when you fix it, that does not reduce what they are going to charge you. Now, these telecommunication companies, will their masts fall anywhere and they wait for their consumers to contribute money to fix the masts? No. So a drastic step must be taken. Look, we have heard that if they revise it, if they revise what has been done, we are going to pay a lot for it. Please, let us pay that money, because I believe very strongly that whatever we are going to pay will have been gotten in all these years that we are suffering all this embarrassment every time. Because now, how do you say it at this time when fuel and diesel is costing fortunes? Companies will have to shut down. Companies will have to buy diesel. Companies will have to buy petrol and all that. And all these small Yalata, the Yabasira in my community who grants pepper, we have to go and buy fuel. All these things contribute to the cost of the economy. And everything now is increasing. The whole living expenses have increased, but salaries have not increased. So how do we go about this? And if the government does not close its eyes and take that decision, that look, we must solve this problem. Look, I want a situation where a government might come to power and say, in my first 4-year tenure, I want to face the issue of power and road. Then it's not as if you are going to neglect the others, but you face those ones, because today, if we solve the problem of power and the problem of bad road, cost of living in Nigeria will go down. But we have a situation where you have to buy fuel, you have to buy diesel to power your generator, to power your plant and all that, and so on. Of course, you will put it on the consumer. So this embarrassment is getting too much. Something must be done. We shouldn't be coming here every month, every week, every other day, and be talking about power. The same thing we said 8 years ago, 4 years ago, 12 years ago, 16 years ago, is what we are talking about now. So are we just here to hold talks and nothing happens? This must stop.
It's difficult to review the kind of agreement we signed under Goodluck Jonathan with this discos and gencos, and the way it was patterned. A lot of people say it's difficult to review it, and if you have to even review it, you will send negative signal to would-be investors.
No, I think they just made it a paddy thing.
Exactly.
And it's all collapsing like a pack of cards.
Yeah.
Ibadan Disco now is in a mess.
Oh. They control Ogun. And,
yes.
Oyo. See, in Ibadan Disco, which is under receivership now.
Yeah.
By BP. The place is in a mess, and I think the government should do something about it, because the people are suffering. Government still has 40% stake in all these discos.
So
now what they are doing is they are doing asset stripping in most of the discos.
Exactly.
They are not putting in anything.
No.
Like he said earlier, if you have a problem with your transformer, you'll be the one to pay for disco to fix it. You know the funny part of it? after fixing it, they will tell you it becomes the property of the disco.
Exactly.
And they are not going to say, because you have paid to fix it, they will they will remove the money from what you are paying. So the case of Ibadan Disco is very critical, where the BPE appointed a caretaker manager, an undertaker. The undertaker is even doing worse things in Ibadan Disco. So the same thing is happening in Benin Disco. At a point, the whole of Ekiti and Edo axis were in darkness because of the mismanagement in Benin Disco.
That controls Ekiti.
Yes,
Yeah.
Benin controls Ekiti. Ibadan Disco controls
Ogun.
Oyo, and part of Kwara.
Yeah.
But these guys, I think they are just interested in taking money. So
They have not invested anything.
now, the issue of regulation is another problem. You have the NERC, you have a TCN, you have a NEMSA, working at
Cross purposes.
cross purposes. So the Gencos who are supposed to even generate, well, even when you generate, like I said earlier, where do you store the electricity? We don't have a capacity to store more than 5,000. So even if we generate 10,000 copies, 10,000 megawatts, I mean, where are we going to store it? So the problem is not really distribution per se. It's generation and storage, which we need to do something. I expect that it's not only Oshogbo that will be the national control center for a country like this. Maybe we break it down to about 6. It's Oshogbo that is the controlling almost everything.
Regional.
Yes.
One of the first things President Bola Ahmed Tinubu did when he got to the office was unbundling of this discos and the power sector, that private participants, state governors, and some other players could come in to invest. So months after that, what's the progress reports?
Well, you see, so far, we have not had anything. The reason I believe is that it is not a touch and go thing. It is not something that you do immediately and you start getting return. It takes a lot of time.
Because I know Lagos State government want to
we do it on.
that too.
You see, what should happen now is all the current discos, there are no foreign investors there. We did it, as he said, a party thing. And what they are focusing their attention on is you have to allow us to put the charges so that it can go on and on. But you need to offer that service first before you raise your charges. Because if your services are good, people will be ready to pay. At worst, what people will do is they will get the time when they will put on their light. And you have noticed that with the recent increment in the tariff, you hardly go around any street now and see the security light in most houses on.
Yeah.
People have learned. So if you make the thing work, people are ready to pay more. And they have done even that. They said they segmented it. They have some low density area where they pay more, and high density area where they pay more, and low density area where they pay low, and all that. That maybe they will be shedding light from the low place, but all the same is falling. So what needs to be done is Nigeria has very brilliant energy experts at home and abroad. They need to be invited to come and sit down and say, look, how do we solve this problem? For the telecommunication sector, that has been solved, and it is working well. So what we need now to do is this electricity, which is also a very crucial part of life, how do we solve it? I mean, we have solar power. Nigeria is in the tropics, so the solar energy should not be our problem. So why is it that we don't want to focus on all that and see what can be done about it? We need to engage all our physics graduate, electric, and all those whatever, to sit down and say, look, what is it that we can do to generate power and make this thing work? We shouldn't continue like this.
How do we now encourage more people to come to invest? It seems to be capital intensive.
You know, I think the deregulation of the power sector, which was
Complete deregulation.
yeah, completely. Which I mean, that's what we need, and that motion was kicked off during the wee hours of the Buhari administration. You know, somebody just sent me a text message now that the problem with Ibadan Disco, if care is not taken, there is something that it says ethnic cleansing is going on in Ibadan Disco. That's why the fact that they are not even giving the service, they are not rendering the service that they are supposed to provide. And that is, you see, that's what is happening in most of the discos. But those in Lagos, probably because there are so many industrial areas, people could afford to pay more. It's not that pronounced with Eco Disco and Ikeja Disco. But Abuja Disco, Aba Disco, Kano Disco, all those discos, almost the same thing is happening there. And I see two things happening here, apart from the party stuff. Those who are providing alternative energy, those selling generators, they don't want our national grid to work. That's a battle that the federal government needs to fight. Those selling generators in Nigeria are sabotaging the efforts of government to ensure that we have stable power. And there are some people inside of these discos that we want to even discourage you from getting prepaid meters so that they can come and be climbing their... Yes,
what they used to do.
That is it. And also, those of us who are consuming this energy too should stop short-circuiting. Yes, we should stop sabotaging government by some people who go and connect their meters in such a way, even the prepaid meters, in such a way that they will bypass water heaters, ACs.
Yeah.
We should stop doing that.
That's not patriotic.
So, I mean, a lot of issues.
In fact, things like that should be treated as economic sabotage. They should be punished.
That happens a lot. That's why you see most of these meters now being placed on the poles.
Yeah.
On the poles and on high walls to make sure that people don't have access to it. So while blaming some of these discos, we should also blame some of the consumers.
All right.